Okay, first thing I had to do is I had to take one of them old, busted, crusted, nasty old kickdown cable brackets, and I made that. That is, I had trimmed it down, took the big ugliness out of it and just trimmed it down, and this is going to go back here, there, for the kickdown cable. I'm going to have to figure something out for the throttle cable, but we're going to put the studs and hang the carburetor, and we're going to work from there. Well, my son sent me a couple things. Sent me the gaskets, the stud kit. I did have to buy this. This is a kickdown cable. I didn't have one of those. After all these years, didn't have a kickdown cable stud for my Holley, so I had to buy one of those. All this stuff will be in down below. Links. Help a brother out. All right, to go along with the carburetor, we're gonna have to add in the fuel pump. And yeah, no, I don't want to hear it. I'm just saving a little money. This one was working when I test fired it. If you want to see that video, you can go back and watch that video. But basically, we're going to use a gasket that my son sent me. And gaskets, if you know anything, you know that you need to put silicone if you want to seal on both sides. Doesn't have to be a lot. It doesn't have to be a lot. It just has to be enough. All right, blue and black. All right, both sides. All right. So, and this can only go one way. So there's a long way and a short way. It needs to go on just like this. All right. Run holes. Because of silicone, it will stick. It'll stay on its own. Only special, those are 3/8 bolts with 7/16 heads, and they're made specifically to get around so that you can bolt up around and get nuts and get a socket on that to tighten it up. All right, now the trick to this is that rod, the push rod, needs to be all the way up. Okay, just to make sure that the rod's all the way up, so you can slip this in just like this, and then we'll take one of those special bolts, all right, tight. Now that that's in place, that will go on that will fit to the back side of the alternator, which is going to go here, and the water pump. It's out of the way, so we're going to connect that into that with some hose and a see-through filter, a non-burn your truck down filter, not one of the glass ones. I'll show you what we're going to do. This is just standard. This is not performance. This is just basically a stock small block Chevy, but this 3/8 line will flow plenty of fuel for this carburetor, and that see-through filter is what I want on this carburetor. I want to see up front. It's not very aesthetic, but it's safe, and it gives me a sight view so that I know if I'm sucking junk from a tank or from the pump, or whether it's working or not. If it's shuts down on me and I can't figure out why, I just gotta check that. That's the first check. See if that's actually working or not. So, and it's got plenty of flex. Shouldn't need any flex, but it's got plenty of flex in it. So that's about as simple as it gets, just straight from the pump. And then the pump line is right here. So it's just a straight shot, a little piece of hose. I might actually put a filter, because the hose end, or I might actually put a filter. We'll probably need to bend this a little bit, but we'll make that right. But I might actually put one of these in between there, just in case. But that's where we're sitting. So fuel line is plumbed, carburetor's on. So now I need to address the kickdown cable and the throttle pedal and spring. All right, now we got everything tightened down. We got the clamps on everything, so nothing will leak. The other things that we have finished is I have the throttle cable done. And I had this old bracket hanging on the shelf for years and years and years. And it used to have the kickdown cable hooked up to the back of it like that. But it never worked really good. It was never quite the right spacing. Even like, as you can see, I had it spaced all the way back. It didn't ever quite work. That's why I went ahead and went with the cut down one that you've already seen. And I basically just used a couple of small washers, and I had this stud. It's got a C-clip on it. So I had to drill that out just a hair to get over that stud. But it's a perfect, nice, tight fit. There's no slop. It works good. Kickdown cable is right. It's set correctly. I had this spring, again, on the shelf, and it was about, this long. So I basically just cut it down, and I put a loop in it. Now, this little bracket here, I made this. This is just a piece of metal that I drilled a hole in, and I put the bend in it with the vise. And I actually, as you can see, I put a little tab on the backside behind the screw up against the manifold so it wouldn't move, because the pressure's all going that way, toward that direction. And so it's in place, and it won't ever move, and it's tightened down also. So only thing we got left to do, vacuum lines. All right, one thing I wanted to say about return springs, and this is just from all the years I've been doing this and experienced, and actually having one hang open on me, wide open one time in a standard. That wasn't fun. That was a rodeo ride. Okay, so my opinion is a return spring, every carburetor should have a return spring no matter what, okay? But the return spring should have tension on it. Not a lot of tension, but it should have tension on it as it's sitting without anything being depressed by the throttle cable, okay? This thing should be expanding the moment you open the throttle, okay? If it's in there loose and it doesn't have enough tension on it, you could hang a throttle, and that's no fun. So always, even just at idle, this should have tension on it no matter what. All you really need when it comes to an older truck like this is you need 3 vacuum sources. You need a ported vacuum source off the manifold for the distributor, for the vacuum advance on the distributor. You want a ported vacuum because you don't want that pulling vacuum all the time. You want it pulling when you need it. You need a vacuum source here from the manifold that we're going to run to the back for the vacuum modulator for the transmission. And then you need a PCV valve. And there's, on these 600s like this, there's a real nice big port right here on the back, 3/8 line. We'll just run that from there to here, and we'll change the grommets out and put a PCV valve in there, positive crankcase ventilation valve, and that'll finish the system. And that's basically all you need. Now, Holleys do come with extra ports on top and bottom, larger bottom. Now, if this one did need, since I do have just a manual brakes on it and I don't have the vacuum on the brakes, then I would, if I had that, I would run a vacuum tee off of here for manifold vacuum for the brakes, or off of here for this
PCV valve, and then use the big port back here of manifold for the brakes. But in the worst case scenario, you have 5 readily sources of 4 manifold sources and 1 ported source. And just on this truck, you only need 3. So 1 ported manifold for the transmission and manifold vacuum for the PCV valve. Well, I took the vacuum line and I took the wire wheel of death to it and I cleaned it all up because it was, you know, they get pretty grody. They sit way back deep in there and they get covered in goo and dirt and grime for decades, and then they end up looking like they're size of a number 2 pencil, but they're actually only a pretty thin piece of metal. And they have nice little barbs on both ends for the good vacuum seal. And then this is just, you know, $1 a foot vacuum line from O'Reilly's, and we're just going to cut it to shape, and they're going to use a dikes to do it with. Now, when I say dikes, I mean wire cutters, and when I say wire cutters, I mean a good, sharp, nice set of wire cutters, not some just cheapy weepies, because won't seal good, it'll look terrible. Okay, and I've just run this down around the motor, kind of out of the way, and this vacuum piece goes right to this. Now you can, if you want to, there's a couple spots in there that you could zip tie that to, like, say, the dipstick tube, but this is kind of designed like everything has to twist and move. So it's designed to have a little bit of movement because everything's going to torque and move and vibrate. If you wanted to, you could, say, zip tie this around the dipstick tube and just kind of like hold it bit in place, but I've never seen these have an issue. This one was not zip tied down. It was just sitting in here. It's bent specifically just for this purpose. So it's kind of totally up to you, but as long as you got it connected, that's your vacuum source for your shifting component, for your vacuum modulator. And if you don't have that hooked up, it's not going to shift correctly. Okay, so PCV valve line is in, manifold port from the back of the carburetor to the PCV valve. It's got a little bit of a kink in it right there, but that doesn't mean it's open. It'll pull the vacuum it needs to pull the crankcase gases out. Ported vacuum for the vacuum canister for the distributor, and there's plenty of room, doesn't interfere with anything. And then, of course, the manifold vacuum for the vacuum modulator for the transmission, hooked up to the line. All done. Now, yeah, it could be a little cleaner, but right now I just want to hear it run. And so everything is tightened up. All the vacuum and all the extras have caps on them that are here on it, capped off. We're going to fire this thing off and see how it sounds with them open headers. I'm really excited. So if you're still here, like, share, subscribe, hit that bell, smash that button, tell your friends, and just remember, Tristan and John, Grandpa will always love you. Y'all have a great day. It's a great day today. Be an even better day tomorrow. Y'all be good.